So we got the 2020 and the 2023 BMW M2, and I kind of wanted to talk about these because one I think looks pretty good, one of the best looking cars I can think of, and then the other one on the other hand looks pretty weird, and I think that's kind of like the general consensus, but I still kind of wanted to kind of talk about it first. The new one up top has 435 horsepower. This is the regular competition, 64,000 to buy it, 406 pound-feet of torque. While the 2020 down below, 404 horsepower for the regular competition and 444 for the CS, which is what we're looking at here. And that's 59 and 84,000 respectively. And then again, 406 pound-feet of torque. I'm not sure, it might be a little more for the CS, but that's the numbers. You could do with that as you wish. But we're gonna get into the design. So talking about the design first, kind of want to look at the old M2 down below, and I kind of want to talk about how, even though I say it looks like pretty much perfect to me, it seems like it really shouldn't work, just because it's a lot of lines that seem like they go in, even up here and up here. It's really just these main lines right here, and it's like it feels almost like I got a few examples like this Camry here had all the lines just like go up, and even the ones that up here like this all just like trying so hard to, I guess it gets like to Toyota badge, and I think it looks pretty weird. I kind of like the Camry, but I think that made it kind of look like a bug in the face, and yeah, I don't think that's what you really want when you talk about designing a car. But like kind of the theme of the old M2 was like, I feel like it shouldn't, but it does work, and that's like the first thing. Secondly, I think despite kind of talking about how those lines kind of confuse me, I think though that it still has a lot of lines that kind of serves it well, like these down here. And I think this is kind of like an obvious kind of thing that I would think that you would want to do when you're talking about designing a car. And I got another comparable vehicle, and that is the Volvo V60, which is like one of my favorite cars. And I think I kind of want to talk about this because despite Volvos obviously being like boxy cars, you still kind of have like this line here and this line here. Even this one is kind of straight, it's still slightly kind of curved out, which kind of serves to plant the car. And I kind of feel like that's what's missing in the new M2 with these controversial big ass boxes right here. It's like, why would you put a bunch of boxes on the front of the car? I don't know. I think potentially kind of moving with the more rugged design, rigid kind of design cars. I think maybe that's what they were thinking. I don't really know. But again, when you talk about an M2, I wouldn't think that you would think to make it rigid or ruggedly designed with a bunch of straight harsh lines. It kind of doesn't make sense. But another reason why I'm saying kind of like the old M2 shouldn't work but it does is kind of looking at this grill. And I like the M2s, they kind of have like the flat grills, kind of like the new M2 here. And then the ones that kind of like stick out, kind of like this one is. It's kind of bulging out just a little bit, but it's still kind of like it's kind of sticking out a bit far. It's kind of popping out at you, and I kind of want to compare that to the M8, which I think looks pretty weird. How this kind of like sticks out like that right there, and like the whole front of this car kind of seems like it's just kind of like stumbling over itself and kind of like filling out a bit too far. And again, like the new or the old M2 does the same thing, but I just like how it looks, so I can't really explain it. Another thing I think is kind of weird about the old M2 is like this little piece. It's like it's connected, but it's not connected. It almost like strangely kind of makes it seem like this little air duct, I guess. It seems like this piece should be able to come down and just cover it all the way up. Why you would want that, I don't know, but that's kind of just what it looks like to me. But I think it's pretty cool because it's like, it's one of those things that's weird and unique, but it actually looks good, which I think a lot of car companies kind of struggling with that right about now. Another thing I kind of want to talk about was these headlights, and these headlights look good in here. This kind of like top part kind of seems like a eyebrow or maybe like an eyelid. it's kind of making it give off a little bit of a sinister look. And then these two headlights, it's simple, but it works, as opposed to up here it's like complicated and it doesn't work, and it kind of makes the car kind of look cockeyed. And I don't think that's kind of what you're trying to go for when you're talking about designing the car either. The last thing I kind of want to talk about on the front end was just the hood. And I think these cars are like proportionate, pretty much the same, but I think it might be graphics, or it might be the fact that the old M2 kind of curves down into itself, whereas the new one is kind of more angular. And I think it makes the hood look like a lot longer. We get a sneak peek of the side view. It makes the hood just kind of looks longer to me, and I don't think that's really what you kind of want when you talk about an M2. So that's just another thing that's kind of throwing off the new M2 to me. So moving on the side, kind of still wanted to talk about the hood. And as you can see what I was saying, like in the front, how the old M2 kind of like curves down like the whole way, versus the new M2 where it's more flat for a bit longer, then kind of dips down pretty abruptly. I think that may add to why the hood looks longer. Maybe it is just a little bit longer, but I think it may have something to do with more of the design and the graphics that they did to the new M2. But the main thing I kind of really wanted to talk about on the side was this big old piece right here. And it kind of seems like it kind of flows into this kind of portion too, but it's really this part, that part right there. It just looks like stuck on body panel, like a body kit that somebody bought and just stuck on there. And I don't think that's what you want from the factory. If you spending however much I said this car was worth, it's too much for it to look like somebody that stuck on some body panels. And that's a stark difference to this here, which is like, it's stylized, but it's like pretty elegantly stylized and pretty subtle as compared to what you get up here. And it seems like they just threw a lot on here trying to make it look like something it wasn't, and I don't think it really worked that too well. Another thing I think is just super random, like why is this like just a perfect right angle? It's like this is trying real hard to put like angles on this car for no reason, and I don't really get that. Kind of talking about this, well, you can't really see it, but it also kind of feels more angular, like all the way up here. It kind of feels from different angles, you kind of see where it doesn't really flow into it, as you can see like down here, where like this part right here is definitely wider to give you, like that wide body look, but it looks like the car was designed to be wider right there, as opposed to just feeling like a different panel was stuck on here and stuck on here just to make the car look wider. It's like this just like naturally just goes wider, and it just flows into that, as opposed to up here where it's like, obviously it's it's not like it's a panel right here. So I'm not saying it's like they actually literally stuck on a panel, but it does kind of have like a crease right here. It's kind of hard to see in this picture, but it just kind of throws it off, and it doesn't really give it a natural look to it, which doesn't really make sense to me. But yeah, that was a big thing that kind of threw me off. Now to kind of talk about lines, kind of like talking about lines made me feel like a car designer. But I don't know, I guess I'll start down here. This it's really like hardly a line, more so like a crease, but I like this one right here, and it kind of flows up right into here. If I can make my line straight, kind of want to talk about this. And then another line right here, it's kind of subtle. I kind of like making these videos because then when I see them in person, like these subtle things kind of stand out to me. I like how that like just outlines the whole back of the car, and then this line flows into this. I always like when like the front of the car and the side of the car and the back of the car kind of flow into each other. And I think that's another thing that kind of threw me off too, with like, I don't know if it's maybe just an angle of this picture up top, but you can't really see any of the front features here that kind of flow into the side of the car, whereas here you can see the whole front grille The headlight kind of protrudes back here. Headlight obviously up here, but it's like it seemed like there was no real love there. And then again with the back, the new M2 kind of does have that kind of outline too, but it doesn't really work that well to me. But still talking about lines, you kind of have this line, which is pretty typical to have in a car, kind of that shoulder line right there. But then it kind of just comes up here, and it kind of like where is it going? It just clashes into this. Whereas this one is like you come up from here, and that's kind of like an awkward line to me too. But I appreciate it has kind of parallel to the wheel well. So I always want some lines to be parallel to something, or I think they kind of just look kind of random. But it goes up here and goes around this little piece, which I kind of appreciate too. Just kind of adding a little something to the car. And then it comes back here, and then the same as with this line, it goes up into here. This line, boom, goes back into here and flows right into this line that I got completely covered up. Kind of flows into that, where they all kind of go together just to get to one common point, to where it then fades right into the back. Then it's like, okay, now we can look at the back. But that's where it's kind of messing up here. It's like none of that. You don't have, like, this line is just straight, and this line is just straight. There's no swooping up into another line to another line. It's just a bunch of random stuff just awkwardly clashing, just being placed onto a car, and it's like, it's not really good. But the last thing I want to talk about on the side was that even though you have this big old chunk down here, which seems like it would kind of cut up some of the mass and the height of the car, just to me, maybe it's not everybody, but it seems like it feels like this car is like chunkier in terms of like height as opposed to this one. Even though this part down here, as opposed to this one, is not as chunky and not cutting into so much mass of the car. But it's still the old M2, and maybe it is just a little shorter, but it doesn't look like it has such a fat ass side profile. And you got what, 1 line, 2 line, 3 line, call that 4 lines, breaking it up, versus down here you just have what, like 1, 2, 3. I don't know the math on that, but it seems like the BMW has the older BMW has a smaller profile than the new one. And I think that kind of adds to the sporty look of a car. Whereas if your side profile looks like a big old brick, it kind of doesn't really give off that real sporty kind of feeling to it. Moving to the back, I kind of don't want to spend too much time on it, but this again the whole car is pretty much like a no contest to me. But the back is pretty atrocious, and I don't even know where to start. But I start right here with this line. With this line right here, it's like, why is this a straight harsh line, and then it goes up like that, and then it's just like it's you looking at this one down here, and it flows properly, and it's not like the flowing lines, and this one gives it like a soft look to where it's like, okay, this doesn't look aggressive. This looks aggressive, and it looks wider even than this up here, and it still has like this panel right here just all smooth. Like, there's no design going on here. There's no like, let's add extra lines here or add a line here for no reason. Like, it doesn't have any of that, but it looks good. So I think the main problem with the new M2 is just over styling, and that's pretty much from every angle. But like, you have this, like, why is this something that's like a big old protruding thing? And it seems like it was based on the old one that also has this line here, but it was more subtle, and it didn't really mess up the flow of the car. I think the old M2 would be cooler just if it had new taillights. Like, these taillights, they look weird based on this shape. If you can see that shape, that looks weird. But the taillights themselves with the LEDs and the mainly being black, that's pretty cool. So I think if you had something similar like that on the old one, I think that would just make it look that much better. The only thing I would change about the old M2 is to widen these tailpipes. For me, I always like my tailpipes being like as far out as they can possibly be. I think that just kind of adds to the wider look of the car, and I think it makes it look a little more planted and a little more aggressive. But that's pretty much all I kind of wanted to talk about on the rear end of the car. So the interior, truthfully, who cares about the interior? Both of them look weird to me. I've never been a fan of BMW interiors. I do like on the CS how you got that how you got that CS right there. I think that looks pretty good. Just so you know what you spent the extra money on. And that's pretty much it. I don't really like the new or the old BMW interiors. The gauge cluster does look like a lot older than 2020, and I don't really know why that is. But I'm not a fan of the big old screens. I don't have a problem with this being a screen, but I'd rather it be like actually separated, not just one big old screen, because it's like it kind of eliminates the coziness of being a driver where you have like your own thing. You're just looking at something everybody's looking at, and it doesn't really. I'm not a fan of either one, but I do like this little center mark thing, whatever it is. I like how you can barely see it, because we're not really like race car drivers, so we don't really need to really know what true center is at. But I always like having stuff like that. So overall, I think the problem with the new M2 is that it's like overstyled, aggressively overstyled, and like awkwardly overstyled, very confused way of being overstyled. It feels like it wants to be futuristic, and with trying to be futuristic is losing the simple like ideas that come along with making a car that looks good, as opposed to just trying to make it look weird and new. Kind of the same way with the new XM SUV. It's like trying to just be new without thinking about what makes a car actually look good. And I seen a video kind of talking about maybe BMW was like using like the new Coke approach, where like Coke had made the new Coca-Cola and everybody hated it. Then they went back to making the normal Coke and everybody loved it, and their stock prices went up. I'm thinking hopefully that's what BMW doing, and maybe they're gonna start coming out with good looking cars again. But as of right now, it looks like BMW is just gonna be ugly, and people probably still gonna buy them. My only defense of the new M2 is that in person it looks a lot better. But as you can see here too, kind of the awkwardness of this that I was kind of talking about, it doesn't really flow. It kind of just pops up out of nowhere, where it's like it's bulged, as opposed to this one where you can't even see where it starts. It just kind of flows, and it's just like now it's wider here, and it is all pretty natural feeling as opposed to the new one. But yeah, obviously I'd rather take the old M2 10 times out of 10. Never drove either one, but I'm sure they both drive good. But in terms of which one looks better, I can tell you that by looking at pictures and seeing them on the road, and the old M2 looks 5,000 times better. So that's all I got. If you like it, I guess. Other than that, be safe, stay smooth.